Welcome to the SaaS AdLab podcast, where we bring to you the stories of SaaS founders, entrepreneurs, and CEOs. My name is Luis. I'm the founder of Fantom Agency, a digital marketing agency specialized in scaling SaaS companies. And today I have the pleasure of interviewing Ross. He is the founder and CEO over at ZenBusiness. First of all, thank you so much for being on here today. It's a pleasure having you, and I'm really looking forward to learning a little bit more about how you grew ZenBusiness. So to start off, why don't you just tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Well, great for having me on here. I'm very excited to be here today. I'm Ross Bhurdorf, CEO of ZenBusiness. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've been doing this for 30 plus years, been through companies like Excite.com back in the initial heyday of the internet or Internet 1.0. And latest thing I did was I was the founding CTO at HomeAway, which we sold for $3.9 billion a couple of years ago. Been a great acquisition for Expedia. I'm very proud of that.
That's
and
awesome.
so I was going to take some time off, but I didn't get much time off. I lasted about 10 months.
Yeah.
And I jumped back in on this deal and the founder and CEO of ZenBusiness, which I'm super excited about. We just closed a $15 million round led by Greg Croft, and we've had some really, really exciting growth.
That's awesome. That's really, really cool. So some interesting things there, definitely. It seems like you'll obviously understand, what it takes to be an entrepreneur, what it takes to actually exit a business successfully. So I think you'd be able to bring a lot of value within that kind of knowledge that not everyone gets the chance to actually having, right? So first of all, like, where does everything begin as far as, like you said, you've been doing this for 30 years or so. Where did you actually learn that, you were an entrepreneur and this is what you were going to do for the rest of your life?
This is the one I tell everyone, and I think there's a little bit of what's going on nowadays is that entrepreneurism has become a vocation, right? So as opposed to, it's like a job as opposed to a passion. I will tell you, for me, it was really out of necessity. I started interning. I grew up in Lincoln, Nebraska, and was going to university there. But I was starving to death, and so I got an internship down here in Austin, Texas, at one of these computer companies that's long since gone, but it was a big computer company. And they passed over $1 billion in revenue, and they handed out all of these plaques, and wow, this is the greatest thing ever. And then 6 months later, they laid off half of their employee base, and I really had the experience of there is no such thing as a guaranteed ride with any size company.
Totally.
And so it was a lesson for me early on. And oh, by the way, I was one of the only people that kept me there because I was a productive intern that they didn't pay much money. So,
right.
It taught me this lesson that there's no such thing as you should go out on the risk curve. If you really want to impact your life, and I think that starts with your pocketbook and then what you can do with your money. There's nothing wrong with money, So I just learned early on, hey, go out on the risk curve and get some control of that risk, as opposed to going to one of these supposed guarantees, right, and them not being so. That's my advice to everyone. Is it's not for everyone, but I think if you pay attention and, put yourself in front of opportunities and take some risk, and what I'm saying is there's no risk at all, actually. So yeah, you should just go out there and do it.
Because essentially you have the same risk that you would have anywhere else, really, having any security anywhere.
In many cases, I can tell you one example during a big downturn, and they happen all the time. I remember, it's like, man, we got 2 years of money in the bank. Everyone else in the industry was being laid off, and we could really, buckle down and take advantage of that opportunity. So in that case, there was actually less risk.
Totally. That's really good. Now, to talk a little bit more about ZenBusiness, why don't you just give us a little bit of background on the actual business, like what it does, what problem it's currently solving for people?
Yeah, I'm super excited about this. This is another mission-driven business for me, like HomeAway. The biggest segment in small business is really the solopreneur business. So it's the single entity LLCs. These really drive most of the jobs and most of the commerce in the US. So we are focused on those businesses. So we set them up, whether it's an LLC, or a C Corp, a S Corp. We get you up and running there. Then we handle all the website requirements, email, domain name. Then we get you, to your first dollar. After you've gotten your first dollar, of course, we do the merchant accounts, the taxes, the invoicing, and the accounting. We really want to be that one-stop platform for these solopreneurs to get them up and running. And then there's this community aspect of it also. So, this community aspect is small businesses, especially solopreneurs, really are on their own, and they feel that way. And they feel disadvantaged by big companies that have this buying power. So by them grouping together at ZenBusiness, we can give them that group buying power because, we basically curate the solutions for their business. Most of our businesses, not all of them, but 70+% are service businesses. There's 20% that sell something where we provide services for them. And then there's some percentage of our business that just does formations to protect assets. So we handle that whole piece, but we're really, really focused on the service and the e-commerce side of the business.
Very cool. So how long has ZenBusiness been around for?
It's been around for 3 years now. I mean, it was bootstrapped early on. We raised a seed round, found market fit, and then for this A round, we're really getting ready to accelerate growth here.
Mm-hmm. How many current customers do you have, like ballpark?
Thousands and thousands.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
Very good.
Our VCs don't like us sharing our numbers.
Right. What's the most important thing that you think has gotten you to the point where you are able to scale the business, aside from having, the right customers in place, like learning who they were? Like, what other aspects of growth are most valuable?
Well, I mean, that we could spend hours on that. I mean, I think with any business, you really have to find, have to be in tuned and in touch with your customers. So my view always, and advice to any entrepreneurs is, you want to go after your major thesis, right? And make sure it's true, so don't hallucinate, or we have a joke around here is like, there's no such, when you talk about, oh, well, you can create this ideal customer, but if they're not reality, who cares, right? So we want realistic customers, not ideal customers. And, your first thesis is, will they purchase your product, and will they purchase it at scale? And can you deliver the service? And can you acquire them with, a financial model that makes sense for the business long term, and ultimately makes sense for the customer? So I would, my view is being realistic, understanding your customers, and testing into that conversion and that customer base, and then keeping them happy. We have a super high NPS. Good. We have 4.8 out of 5 on Trustpilot. The reviews we get, our customers love us. We have a product market fit, around our business, and we like to keep it that way with respect to keeping our customers happy. So long story short, there is, make sure you understand your customers and you're delivering what they want, not what you think they want.
Right. And do you always know that from the get-go, or does that take time to learn? Because when you created the business at the very beginning, like, you really didn't have an idea of what that was going to be.
Yeah, I'm grinning over here. I don't know if it's coming through. It's like, yeah, we were so far off. I mean, early on, we had 12 websites running with different brands because, we were testing. And I mean, we had to refund all of the money for our first 300 customers. Mm-hmm. As it's just easier. Let's just refund all their money because it was a failed experiment. Uh-huh. And that was the right thing to do. So heck no. I mean, we still don't, know everything about our customers and, what they'll buy next. And that's a constant discovery. And the way you do that is
Mhm.
staying in deep contact with them and
Totally.
delivering value.
Right. When it comes down to marketing and scaling those efforts, what have you found? And I don't know if you know the answer for this, but what is it that you found to be the most, you know, I guess, successful as far as actually getting new clients? Because there's a difference between, brand awareness and actually creating a new user, right? So user acquisition. What is it that's actually leading to you receiving more signups onto ZenBusiness?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, I think it's the whole marketing question. I think brand is super important.
Definitely.
I think big brands win, and there's a couple of books out right now around marketing that talk about the biggest brands win in a big way, and so you have to from as a small startup, you have to disrupt them with products and services that the big brands or the big companies can't do,
Right.
right? Because they're dependent on that revenue stream and making their existing business more and more profitable quarter over quarter. So you can go in there and disrupt them and take advantage of that with products and services and fill a niche like what we're doing,
Mhm.
filling a niche that's underserved or not served at all. And so then your brand becomes what's your brand promise there. And in our case, our brand promise is to get you to your first dollar as a solopreneur, and then take you from zero to small and from small to big. So that's what we're very, very focused on. I think the literal mechanics, other than the brand, which takes a long time and a lot of money, uh, and discovery of value, you have to do PPC, you have to do SEO, you have to do affiliates. We get, because one of our focuses was a big brand promise for us is trust that we firmly believe in, is we get a lot of referrals. So we get customer referrals over and over. And I think,
Mhm.
you can't underestimate that. You think, wow, in this highly scalable digital marketing world that, word of mouth
And
is,
it's still one of the biggest, I think, right?
it's,
When it comes down to new user acquisition, because you can't really, you can't compare word of mouth to anything else. It's just so natural, and like usually you're hearing about the new product. If it's word of mouth, you're hearing from someone that you already trust, that they're doing something right with their business and so on. So it's difficult to really try to surpass that, and you don't really spend any money on that either. So it's super profitable.
yeah, agreed. So I think it's not to be underestimated. Now, we spend a bunch of money on it because we spend a lot of money on service. So we make we make sure we answer all the chats, we answer all the phone
Right.
calls, we answer all the emails. So, and we survey our customers. So we spend a lot of time on it with respect to making sure we're putting out a product. And there's some behemoth brands, some of the biggest brands in the world that don't spend anything on service,
Hmm.
right?
Pretty surprising that they're at the spots that they are when they're not producing that kind of customer experience.
That's right. Well, they try to deal with it with technology, and they can do it that way. And the price is right, and they scale in different ways. So when you're a startup brand, you really have to, I think, deliver, and be disruptive around what you offer.
Totally. When it comes down to, you mentioned niche in there, right? And it's super important. I think a lot of companies kind of miss that, and they want to service everyone. Is there any specific, like you already niched down, you said on like the solopreneurs, but is there any vertical specifically within that
Yeah,
market segment that that they just love the product and they're always coming in?
yeah, and that's the service business.
Okay.
So the majority of the solopreneur businesses out there are service businesses. And so we're very, very focused on getting service people up and running. That's why invoicing is so important. That's why taking money is so important. And, you know, getting a website out there, getting them a Yelp account, getting them out there on social, so that whether they're a plumber or a consultant or a contractor, you know, we need to get them to their first dollar as quick as possible to increase their odds of success.
And that means,
yeah, go ahead.
So that means you're going to get them to the first dollar within your platform, or do you, like, for example, do you have businesses that have already been established come to you because they know that it's going to be much easier to use the platform?
Yeah, right now it's really just new business. The majority of our businesses are new first-time formations.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we do have some people that are second-time formations, but you know, that could be because they failed before. So it's really just first-time formations is what we're focused on.
What do you think is the biggest challenge when it comes down to marketing ZenBusiness?
To ZenBusiness, you know, I just think it's, you know, that's a funny one. I mean, we're being very successful with all of our campaigns, you know, and all of the channels. I mean, I just think it's what any new brand suffers from is like, what's ZenBusiness? When you're a major brand that spends, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars on advertising.
Right. When you're QuickBooks, you don't need to, like, you know what it is.
That's right.
Gotcha. So it's really trying to put the, I guess, trying to put the product in the name. So creating brand awareness of really like what the solution actually is that you provide.
That's right.
And what is currently, I mean, is that even something that you're focusing right now, or are you purely focusing on, you know, user acquisition, where you don't necessarily have to do much branding if you're doing the PPC route or stuff like that, but if you're wanting to go more the branding route, then you have to start spending more on, like, what we would call push advertising?
Yes. And so the answer is, at the stage we are now, we have to, you know, walk that fine line. I mean, acquisition and growth is, you know, paramount in that, you know, acquiring customers and making money, you know, just teaches you so much. So, you know, you want to just keep pushing the hell out of that. Mm-hmm. While at the same time, you cannot neglect brand. So, you know, the way we're going after brand is with community, with the outreach, with podcasts. You know, I'm writing a book, you know, just anything and everything you can to get you, you know, out there and get people aware of what you're doing. And, you know, we're in it for the long haul. I mean, these big brands didn't grow up overnight. We shouldn't expect it either. I do have a view, and, you know, I don't think it's a naive view. I think if you're a good operator, or, you know, in our case, I think we're great operators because we've done this before. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Yeah. And you just have to be on the playing field. And I'm always amazed that it's like, wow, that's starting to pay off, man. That, you know what I mean? And everything, you know, takes longer than you expect, but everything also moves faster than you expect. Right. You know, and pretty soon this company will be, you know, 10 years old, and we'll be like, wow, mm-hmm. You know, we're dominating in this market. So I think it's, you know, it's a long game, and we play the long game.
That's awesome. That's really, really cool. Now, kind of like shifting, you know, gears into a more personal, I guess, conversation about actually growing a business and doing this entrepreneurship for such a long time. What are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned as you've grown multiple companies?
Well, the one I just said, I mean, I think it's a long game, and you know, you need to make decisions for I mean, I don't want to be naive. You certainly have to make some short-term decisions, mostly around, almost entirely around short-term revenue. While at the same time, I think you need to balance that with long-term decisions that have long-term mm-hmm. payoffs. And when they're aligned, that's perfect. Many times they aren't aligned, so you have to continue to invest in the future. I mean, I think the other thing is, my biggest lesson is the team and the people. I know that you hear that, everywhere, but I guess you hear it everywhere because it's true.
It's true. Totally.
Yeah, I've got people on my team now that I've worked with for, 25 plus years, multiple people in the 20-year time frame. So, and that is through multiple companies. So we have stuck together, and I don't know if that's good news or bad news. So far, it's been good news in that, they know what to expect of me and I know what to expect of them.
Right.
And the results have been positive,
That's good.
So far through multiple IPOs and multiple acquisitions. We can get up and running really quickly. And, I think that's a big part of what I do, is pull together great teams and let them do what they need to do, because you just can't do it yourself. And you really have to get, people that are smarter, faster, more ambitious, than you are. And that's always been my goal.
Great. What are some good traits of somebody that you'd want on the team, regardless of, what position they're going to be coming into? What is something that you always look for in every single individual that you essentially partner with or work with?
Yeah, I think it's the same. I do the same thing, when I'm pitching a new candidate to recruit. I'm also, constantly recruiting. So, you've got to be able to pitch the company.
Right.
And, one of the things I always do is that, like, there's always three pieces to why you work somewhere. Number one is your boss. So if your boss stinks, it doesn't matter how good the opportunity is.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to overcome that over time. So you got to have a good boss. And then I think the next thing is, what's the opportunity? So you want to be at a company that ultimately gives you freedom, right? And so typically that is in the case of financial freedom, right? So can I make a lot of money here, and then can I go off and make the world either better at the company because it has the ability to do that, or personally, can I go off and invest my time and money to make the world a better place? So that's this kind of opportunity piece. And then third is the impact, which is, am I playing an impactful role at this organization? So there's plenty of places where you can make money, but they're so big that it's like, oh man, I'm not sure I can make an impact. Or it's typically why I sell businesses when they get too big, because it's just not, it's difficult to see that I'm making an impact still. And that could certainly be, a limitation. I know that people at big companies make huge impacts because they make huge scale. That's not me yet, at least. So I look for that in people, that I hire that want to do that, right? Because if they're just cruising along and just collecting a paycheck, they usually don't care about those things. They want to make an impact. They care about who their boss is, and then that keeps me honest and keeps them honest, and they're definitely not going to let me just sit in a seat, right? So they're going to be demanding of me also. And then ultimately, I think if everyone's aligned about financial outcomes, then that works out great for everybody.
Very good advice. When you're building a business from scratch, right, and you obviously, like, I don't believe you do any consultancy or anything like that through ZenBusiness, but you deal with a lot of new businesses. But essentially the question here is, how do you know how much to push if you're not seeing something actually come to fruition? Like, how do you know when to stop, working on something if you're not getting what you thought you were going to be getting from it, if that makes sense?
Yeah, this is a great question. And I think with a digital marketplace that we're in, you should see results right away. If you're not seeing results, now that's not to mean like, oh, I put up this new product and marketed it in this new way, and I'm not seeing the results I want right away, so it's a complete disaster. Let's create a new product.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is there can be many things wrong with that, but if you're not seeing results in, right away and headed in the right direction, then you need to change something.
Right. Or some signal that there will be the right
Yes,
results too.
That's right. That's right. I mean, this is the great thing about, which is so awesome about what we do, is the ability to get signals pretty quickly. And, if you're geared up the way we are as an organization, I mean, we just, swimming in data and signals and our ability to interpret those signals. So my answer is, if you're not getting them right away, then, there's a problem.
Yeah.
I remember we put out a Facebook ad early on, and the sentiment was actually like, they hate the ad. They hate it so much that they're turning it off. You know what I mean? So this was a signal that, and the reason is we went out with some negative advertising. Like, if you don't do this, something bad is going to happen.
Right.
And people hated it. And we knew that within 4 hours. You know what I mean? Now, maybe a less sophisticated company would have sat on that and said, why isn't this working for days and days? But we knew in 4 hours, it's like, shit, negative advertising is not working where we thought it might work.
Right.
And, I think that's probably, I'm not sure that negative advertising is, always doesn't work, but it certainly didn't work in that case.
Totally. Really cool. That's awesome. And what is something that you're not very good at?
Oh man, that's a long list. You should talk. You need to let me give you my wife's phone number. She can give you a list, or you could talk to my employees.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, I pair myself up, my COO that I've worked with, through 4 startups, starting all the way back at Excite.com days. She's the COO. She's very, skeptical, and I wouldn't say very skeptical, but she's more skeptical to me. I'm a vision guy. I can also go down into details because, as a computer scientist, or am a computer scientist and an engineer and software engineer and all that. So I'm definitely detail oriented, but she's a database, her background is a database engineer. She's now the COO, finance oriented, and, all of those pieces. So I think she's a good balance for me.
Yeah.
In that, we need to produce, we've agreed to do this, Ross, let's not go chase the next shiny object. So I don't want to say that that's I'm still very focused also, but I think you really need to get people that balance you out. I think, the company in general, I'm a very approachable CEO and everybody loves me here, but that might not always be great.
Right.
So, there needs to be a backstop for that, and that would probably be one of the pieces that I have.
Great. And we're getting close to the end here, but what are some of your favorite software companies that are obviously not ZenBusiness or anything that you've worked in the past?
Oh man, I haven't had that. Let's see, to think about that. I mean, I really like the G Suite of products and the level of integration. I mean, I will tell you that, not everything works, and, we were talking about support. It's not great.
Yeah.
It's not supported great, but man, I mean, the integration through, their conferencing, calendar and conferencing and email and all of their tools, our whole business is on it. So that's really great. From that point of view, it really is the promise, or close to the promise of, Jetson level software.
Yeah.
So I think it's, and we take it for granted, which is a clear indication of how successful and ubiquitous it is. So I'd say that's a fantastic product. I'll also say, you know, we run our whole back office on Salesforce.com, and I don't want to say that it's a, you know, at one level, it's a great piece of software in that we can run our whole business on it. I mean, you know, it takes, you know, we have a full-time Salesforce engineer that's on it all the time, but what you can do with it and the level of scale and what we have done with it is awesome.
Yeah.
So, you know, and then, you know, adding Salesforce Marketing Cloud to it and what we can do from that point of view. So I think those are all, you know, I think from an enterprise level, the kinds of things that excite me. I will tell you, just in general, the same segment that we are in right now is very, very exciting. Every day I turn around, there's a new, you know, SaaS-based SMB solution, right? And I think that's I call it the renaissance of, you know, SaaS-based SMB, and we're playing right into that. The world is moving in this direction. If you know, when I started up HomeAway, we built everything. At ZenBusiness, we buy everything. You know, we just build the critical pieces that our customers love. But you know, our you know, accounting is SaaS-based. Our HR, our cap table, you know, our shopping cart, everything. And you know, at HomeAway, you know, I had 50 people working on our shopping cart.
Yeah.
Here, I have one person working, you know, half a day a month on our shopping cart.
Yeah. Big difference.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
Totally. But I just to go back on what you said about Google, I think we definitely, as a whole, we definitely take it for granted, almost to the point where you forget that, you know, it is a software solution almost, because it's such an integrated part of everyone's lives at this point. But it's definitely, it's a great product, and I don't think anybody can deny that.
Well, we write them a big check every month, so I'm fully aware of but it's worth it.
Definitely, 100%. And where can people find you online, Ross?
Ross at ZenBusiness.com.
Okay, and then they can ask you any questions there or anything like that?
Yeah, they can send me anything, and they usually do, so it's fine.
Good, awesome. Well, last question here. Do you have any questions for me?
No, it's a great interview. Thank you so much for your time. I'm so grateful that you reached out and I was able to tell my story.
Definitely. Thank you so much for being on here, Ross, and we'll catch you soon.